In August of 2022, the Biden administration made a big splash when it revealed a plan to wipe out $400 billion in federal student loan debt. This was a pretty sweet deal for anyone who qualified for it. Up to $10,000 or $20,000 for Pell Grant recipients of their student loan debts would be erased. Just poof, gone. That would have been enough to completely cancel out the loans for around 20 million borrowers across the country. However, on September 29th of 2022, 6 Republican-led states in Arkansas, Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, and South Carolina filed a lawsuit against the president's plan, arguing that Biden was vastly overstepping his authority by moving to cancel hundreds of billions of dollars in consumer debt without authorization from Congress. This led to the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals hitting the pause button on the plan in October. By February of 2023, the plan's legality was under scrutiny by the U.S. Supreme Court. And on June 30th of 2023, the Supreme Court announced that the Biden administration was not in a position legally to give this level of flat-out forgiveness. So now what? What was the Supreme Court's reasoning for shutting down the program? How will this impact the student loan payment suspension? What happens when the loan payments start up again? Does the Supreme Court decision change the new income-driven repayment plan? And how is it possible to pay $0 a month on your student loans if you're working full-time and making less than $15 an hour? Well, today we're going to answer all those questions. Hello, my friends. My name is Kobe Hunter, and if you like learning about business and personal finance, you should definitely consider subscribing to my channel for these 3 reasons. First, it's free. Second, I make well-researched videos that are unbiased. And third, by watching my videos, you will be able to build the skills to make better investment choices. So click that subscribe button, and if you don't feel like I've earned it after a couple videos, cool, unsubscribe. I know you will like it though. In order to truly understand what's next, we need to understand the Supreme Court's opinion. The Supreme Court disagreed with the Biden administration's argument to justify the loan forgiveness plan. Biden argued that the Education Secretary, Miguel Cardona, possessed the power via the 2003 HEROES Act to alter, change, or dismiss parts of the student loan system during military or other national crises like the COVID-19 pandemic. The HEROES Act is a product of the 9/11 terrorist attacks and was used to provide financial relief to the victims of the attacks. However, the Supreme Court rejected Biden's camp's assertion that they could legally cancel the debt by saying that erasing such a significant debt load cannot happen without the consent of Congress. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote, quote, "The Secretary asserts that the HEROES Act grants him the authority to cancel $430 billion of student loan principal. It does not. We hold today that the Act allows the Secretary to waive or modify existing statutory or regulatory provisions applicable to financial assistance programs under the Education Act, not to rewrite that statute from the ground up." And since the House of Representatives is controlled by Republicans, although it be a slim majority, the Democrats are not going to be able to get anything significant past there as far as student loan forgiveness bills go. Now we can talk about if we think the Supreme Court decision was good or bad all day in the comments, but the reality is the decision has been made and the question is what's next. So let's talk about it. How does this affect the payment pause? Since March of 2020, federal student loan payments and interest have been on hold, being both prolonged by Trump and Biden. And this freeze is scheduled to end on September 1st of 2023. The recent negotiations around the debt ceiling, which you can check out right here if you want to learn more about, legally confirmed this date, and it's improbable that another extension will be granted. Thus, borrowers will be expected to start repaying their loans starting in September of 2023. So payments are going to restart, but is there a way to pay less? Well, actually, yeah. Let's start with the basics though. How to manage your loans when payments restart. First, take an inventory of your student loans and see where they stand. Second, confirm your loan servicer. Several loan servicers have left the federal lending program since 2020, and your debt may have been transferred to a different company than you were working with before. Even though you should have probably received notices in the mail if this change occurred, it's always good to double check if your servicer has changed. But please be careful, because there are a lot of scammers out there that are pretending to be loan servicers and trying to prey on you, so the only way you can safely and reliably confirm your federal loan servicer is by logging into studentaid.gov. Third, make sure all of your info is up to date. Fourth, you have to re-enroll on autopay. You should be receiving a billing statement at least 3 weeks before your first payment is due, but if you were previously making automatic student loan payments before the pandemic, you have to re-enroll or re-opt back into automatic payments. So make sure you get everything set up properly and enroll in autopay so you don't get any of those pesky late fees. Fifth, reevaluate your loans by double-checking your interest rates, loan balances, and remaining years in repayment. This is important to check because it will allow you to adjust your spending habits to prepare to afford your payments or start finding ways to reduce your payments when they start up again. So assuming you're worried about being able to afford your repayment plan, what can you do? Well, there are several options that you can look into, and a lot of them will actually reduce your monthly payment by a bunch or even make it zero. If you aren't making a lot of money, an income-driven repayment plan or IDR plan is a great place to start. The way these work is they take a set amount of your monthly payment as a percentage of discretionary income. So, for example, if you make $4,000 a month, but the Fed decides that only $1,000 of that is discretionary, and the IDR is 10%, you'd pay $100 a month. And after 20 or 25 years of paying your loan, regardless of how much money you actually still owe, it gets forgiven. There are also other forgiveness options you could qualify for. Yes, Biden's loan forgiveness was the broadest and most universal, but if you work for the government, are a teacher, dentist, nurse, or doctor, there are loan forgiveness plans designed for you that you can access that are just much more specialized to your career path. Another option is to request deferment or forbearance. By demonstrating economic hardship or meeting other qualifications, you could request deferment of your payments or forbearance from your loan servicer. Both options pause your payments for an allocated number of months. However, this is not a silver bullet, as interest typically continues to accrue. So you should only use this strategy if you have absolutely no way to pay for it. Another option for if your payments are going to be too big to pay is refinancing. This allows you to potentially get a lower interest rate, which means you could get a lower monthly payment, or you could choose to get a shorter payment term and just pay more each month with that lower interest rate to get the debt off your chest more quickly. You should be aware here that if you refinance, you'll be going from owing debt to the government to owing debt to a private institution. So you'll lose the federal benefits and protections you had before. So for example, once you go private, you can't go back to the government and enroll in an income-driven repayment plan. Speaking of income-driven repayment plans, does the Supreme Court ruling get rid of the new income-driven repayment plans? No, the block does not eliminate the income-driven repayment plans. In fact, in response to the Supreme Court's block, in addition to vowing to find a way through a different legal route to forgive student debt, the Biden White House announced a revamped plan to make income-driven repayment plans even more enticing. These new changes are expected to benefit at least 30% of student loan borrowers who are currently enrolled in an IDR plan. This is called the SAVE plan, and here's what makes the new plan so great. Monthly payments are capped for borrowers at 5% of their discretionary income instead of the current 10%. The White House estimates that this will lower the average annual student loan payment by more than $1,000 for current and future student loan borrowers each year. Balances of less than $12,000 are forgiven after 10 years instead of the normal 20 years. That's a pretty big drop in my opinion that I feel like more news outlets should be talking about. They're kind of glossing over it. On top of this, the non-discretionary income amount will be raised from 150% or $21,870 to 225% of the national poverty level, which means that you don't have to pay anything back out of the first $32,805 you make each year. And this is where the you don't have to pay your student loans back if you make $15 an hour or less comes from. If you make $15 an hour and you work every week of the year for 40 hours a week, you will make $31,200 a year, which is below the threshold to pay interest. So by signing up now, you could pay $0, but still be working towards that 10-year mark to have $12,000 of your loans forgiven. On top of this, the SAVE plan reduces the amount of interest you can build on your debt. It caps interest accrual at whatever your monthly payment is. So, for example, if your monthly payment is set at $30, but your interest is supposed to increase your debt by $50, it makes it so it only increases it by $30, which I think is really fair and good for the borrower because it theoretically prevents you from having more debt in 50 years from now than you had when you started. If you have an income-driven repayment plan that's not Repay, you should apply for the Repay program, and then when SAVE goes into effect this fall, you will automatically be switched into it. And that's the basics of the changes in the loan forgiveness program from the Supreme Court to the Biden White House. If you guys enjoyed this video, consider subscribing so you can see more videos about personal finance that will help you get ahead in life. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.